So I managed to get myself organised and head out tonight after a few rabbits. Now I think this is about the third year I've been on this permission, and I was hoping it would provide plenty of rabbits the same as it has before. But on the first scan across the fields I didn't see much. So I checked the little field to my left, and there was quite a few rooks and jackdaws nipping about it looking for insects and worms. But I spotted a rabbit in the distance to the left hand side. Now it's not likely I'd be able to stalk the rooks and jackdaws, but that rabbit I should be able to stalk down the far hedge and get within range of it. So that's where I headed to. And sure enough, as soon as I cleared the gate into the field, the rooks and jackdaws all cleared off to another field. But in the distance I could see a rabbit or two just in the middle of the screen there in the long weeds. So I headed down that direction. Now I very carefully approached the corner of the hedgerow there and had a scan along it, but I couldn't see the original rabbit I'd spotted from a distance. But the other two that was in the weeds along the far hedgerow were still there. So I decided to head for them. Now this wee corner of the field here is a wee bit rutted. Whether it got caught up with the cattle and the wet weather or not, I don't know. But now it's dried out, it's full of potholes, and you have to be careful in how you walk across it so that you don't go down your face and nose. So thankfully I managed to safely navigate that and slowly make my way up the field to where the rabbits were feeding. I managed to get within just over 30 yards from them. Thankfully the tall weeds and grass they're feeding in made it far easier for me to stalk unseen without having to get down on my hands and knees or even onto my belly and my elbows to get close to them. So cautiously sat down and got the rifle into my shoulder, and then took a second or two to catch my breath before taking the shot. But as you'll see, the weeds making it easier for me to stalk also made it harder for me to see the rabbits. So I decided to give them a little mouth squeak to see if I could get them to stand clear of the weeds. And it sort of worked. But as I was lining the crosshairs up in his head through the grass, he decided he had had enough and headed for home. Thankfully for me though, it made the shot much easier, and I took him a nice headshot at about 26 yards. I quickly reloaded, or as quickly as you can with a underlever air rifle, and hoped I could get a shot at the second rabbit, but by this time he had made a clean escape through the hedgerow. Now when I stood up, I had a wee look up the field behind me, as I did see two rabbits earlier on when I was making my way down, and sure enough they're still there. So instead of going over and picking up the rabbit I've just shot, I decided to try and stalk up the field to see if I could get a shot at one of these rabbits. Now as you can see, there's no real cover for me to hide behind while I'm stalking, and now and again the rabbits would stand to attention as if they spotted me or heard something, so you sort of have to stop, wait till they go back down to feed again before moving on. Now it was unplanned, but the sun behind me here probably was helping things quite a bit. It was probably making it harder for the rabbits to pick me out. They knew something was there, but they didn't see it as a danger because I was taking my time. So I got within about 35 yards, but the rabbit looked jumpy, so I didn't take my time to catch my breath and went for the rabbit on the right there for a headshot and totally fluffed it. I can't be 100% sure, but the rabbit took off up the field, seemingly totally unharmed, as he stopped quite a distance up the field out of range and looked back at me, almost to give me the fingers. So maybe just pierced his ears, pulled the shot too high. Disappointing, but you live and learn, and thankfully I still believe that the rabbit was unharmed. So I turned and went back to the rabbit I shot just earlier. It was a nice clean headshot, and it looked as if it was a fair size of a doe rabbit, female. Belly felt quite big and soft, so she might well have had a litter at some time. So I'll give her belly a wee squeeze to get rid of any excess urine, and a quick flick to throw any of that congealed blood from the headshot out of its ears before I put it into the game bag. Then head it back up the field in the same direction it came from. So, nearing the top end of the field, guess what I saw? Yep, a rabbit in the hedge. Now, I couldn't honestly tell you if this was the rabbit I missed just a few minutes ago, but not to look a gift horse in the mouth, I lowered myself to make my profile look a bit smaller and decided to stalk in a wee bit closer, as this time I didn't want to miss. I managed to get myself in to within 30 yards of the rabbit. Again, sitting down in a nice comfortable shooting position, and this time I took my time and caught my breath before taking the shot. I was just contemplating where to put the pellet when the rabbit turned its head and gave me a nice broadside shot at its brain. But I do have to admit, when I did go forward to pick the rabbit up, it still was conscious. The shot wasn't totally perfect, so I give the rabbit's neck a wee stretch and finished it there and then so it wasn't suffering. And slowly made my way back to the camera for the cows ate it. You can see the exit wound in the head is a wee bit high, so the pellet maybe skied it over the top of the brain and didn't do as much damage as it should have. So I made my way down the field towards where the gateway was into the next wee meadow. And here I spotted a rabbit in the corner of the field just below the slurry tankers where I started. Now, there's no cover between me and the rabbit to hide behind, so all I could do was basically bluff my way forward up the farm track, trying to make as little noise as possible with the gravel underfoot. Now, once I got far enough, I was able to get onto the grass, which made things a lot easier, as I can stalk a lot quieter on soft green grass than I can on a hard concrete surface with stones scattered over it. But I got myself within 30 yards again of the rabbit, as a nice comfortable range. Got myself into a good familiar shooting position. Caught my breath again, as it's quite a warm evening even though there is no real sunshine. Then give the rabbit a wee squeak to get it to stand up still. And took it with a nice clean headshot. Some of you will probably be asking why I'm using a spring powered HW97 while I've got a couple of high powered PCP air rifles at home. Well, it's the start of the season and it should be fairly easy to get within range of the rabbits, so I'll start with the spring rifle, and once the rabbits get a bit harder to stalk, I'll use the high powered rifle. Now, when I made my way forward, I heard some heavy footprints behind me, and when I turned round, one of the young heifers in the field was making a go for me. So when I turned round, I sort of stamped my foot, and this stopped her dead in her tracks, and I waved her on. She wasn't meaning anything aggressive by it, she was just having a bit of fun with something new and strange in the field. But something the size of a 3/4 grown cow could do you a lot of damage, even though it is in play. But once I checked out the rabbit, another doe, I give the belly a squeeze to get rid of any excess urine again before putting it into the game bag. All this, of course, was still under the watchful eye of the young heifer that was just out of camera shot there on the right hand side. If I'm up here another day, I'll maybe see if I can get her on camera for you. So I made my way further up the field to a corner, and I spotted a couple of rabbits, if I can get them on camera here, feeding away in the weeds. So I decided to try and get within range of them, see if I could get a shot, one last one before the light finally failed on me. But as I made my way forward, the two rabbits decided they'd had enough and cleared off. But I spotted a third rabbit a wee bit further along, and decided to see if I could stalk that one. Again, this is one of the areas where the ground's got a wee bit torn up. Whether it's maybe close to a drinker or what, I don't know, but now the ground's dried and the potholes are a wee bit hazardous, let's say, and I lost my balance and almost fell into one. I have quite big feet, but unfortunately they're not big enough to clear a lot of these holes, so I just have to slowly, cautiously make my way across them. Once I'd navigated that rough bit of ground, I've made my way up onto this wee bit of level, raised ground, as it should give me a good place to get sat down and take the shot. Thankfully the rabbit's still there. He either thinks I'm not a threat, or he can make it to the hedge before I can outrun him. So I cautiously sit down, getting into the shooting position. I find this is the point when, if a rabbit's going to bolt, it'll be when I'm trying to get sat down into a nice shooting position. But again, I catch my breath, get onto the rabbit, and try and give him a wee squeak to see if he'd raise his head, which he wouldn't. So I decided to see if I could thread the pellet through the grass and dropped him with a nice headshot. It was another good sized rabbit. The shot exited there in the eye and struck me on the other side just below the ear, behind the eye. That was a buck rabbit, and you could see he was doing a bit of fighting as one of his ears was quite well torn. So again I give his belly a little squeeze to get rid of any excess urine. Give him a wee flick to get rid of all that clotted blood running out of his ears after the headshot, and then threw him in the game bag. And since the light was finally going, I decided to head back to the van and call it a night. So I've got 4 rabbits in the bag for my first outing and 1 miss unfortunately, but that was still nice to get out and about.